Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game So I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today, and one that's going to make everyone very, very happy. We are talking about Myrient one more time to give a progress update on how the preservation of that website is going. Because about 10 days ago, I talked about the fact that Minerva Archive, a new project, was basically trying to preserve every single file and every single bit of data on Myrient. That way it can be held into the future, hosted, and shared with everyone for a video game preservation win. And when I talked about that video, there was a lot of concerns that the overall speed at which Myrient was being archived was not going to actually make it by the end of the month, because we'll go into more detail in just a bit if you missed those videos. But basically, at the end of March, Myrient is going to be shut down due to server cost issues. And when we talked about the percentage of everything that had been saved in the last video, the math kind of checked out to think that it actually shorted itself when it came to getting all of the data before the server was shut down. The good thing is that's not going to be the case whatsoever. Now, I've structured this video in two parts. If you just want to know what the updates are, go ahead and pop over to 4 minutes and 15 seconds and you can get the new information. But I'm going to recap everybody talking about the new news on the overall Minerva Archive and basically what happened with Myrient in the first place. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But I would say Myrient is one of the best archives out there, especially for deep cut stuff. When you're looking for a game that absolutely no other website has, they are there, they are ready to host it for you. But the community was not in the mood to lose Myrient, so they went in and basically charged full steam ahead to be able to back up every single file on there so that it is protected for all time. And to say that was a big project would be an understatement, because we're talking about over 390 terabytes of actual video game preservation. And I am a filmmaker for a living. I have a ton of different hard drives, both ones that I use every day and some that are in the closet archived. And I would say I probably have about 50 terabytes of active data storage here. That cost a fortune. It takes up a lot of space as well. And when everyone got the news that this was shutting down on March 31st, the internet absolutely was just so bummed out about this, because again, it seems like, at least in the comments, not many people even knew that Myrient existed, but the ones that did used it absolutely as a resource, myself included. When I needed to find a game that was nowhere out there, maybe I had something like a floppy disk in a box and it wouldn't read, Myrient always had a good dump that would actually work on real hardware and in emulation that was able to capture some of the footage and talk to you about it. And it is one of those things as well, when I actually have to patch a game like the most recent Lupin III, the Pyramid of Sage that came out, as opposed to putting my own disc into a CD-ROM drive, and you can see I have it here, I would pop over to a site like Myrient and go ahead and download a game I already own. That way I can patch it quickly and just kind of move on with my work. And other preservation sites, and I'm not saying I'm a preservation site by default, use this to be able to actually find this legacy media so they can research and talk about it. So obviously Minerva Archive was in the game to be able to preserve all of this stuff. And this is of course very important, because we're not just talking about trying to go out there and find a downloadable copy of something like a Sonic game that clearly would be all over the internet. We're talking about, again, some of the rarest, most esoteric and obscure titles you could possibly find. If you know me and you know the channel, that is some of the stuff I love. And as I said in a previous video, I have used this site to actually make a new floppy disk for a game where the third floppy in the series of 4 would not read whatsoever. So I was actually able to restore that from that copy, because stuff like Ballad for Maria, not exactly the thing that a lot of websites are going to actually have available, especially in the right format that has a 1-to-1 byte match and checksum from the original disc. So that's why it is so important. When we last talked about this, people were saying what the overall status was going to be. There were 71 active people preserving things, and it was basically around like 4 to 5%. Now that did jump up to around 10% on the site, but the site wasn't actively tracking correctly the overall percentage of things that were saved. And that was something that really did concern people when they were talking about the overall percentage and the time. And I mentioned in the comments I would address this again, because I knew in the background how the percentage was actually tracking. Because you'll see there 4.1% last time we talked about it. The math on that basically said that by the time you got to March 31st, you wouldn't actually be able to have all of the data stored. Well, the good thing is, as of today, as of about 20 minutes before I do this voiceover, 90% of Myrient has been preserved for all time. So there's about 10% to go, and there's obviously going to be 21 more days or 3 weeks to be able to do that. So it is coasting into the finish line, and it is coasting in a lot quicker than anyone else would expect. And that means once this actually gets rehosted in whatever form it takes, and I know that is the project goal, every single piece of data that is on Myrient right now will be available for everyone to go ahead and browse, research from, or restore things for all time. Because trust me, it is not easy to get to something like 90% off 390 terabytes. And if there's one word for that sort of progress, it's going to be this. And I'll be right back with just a little bit more. And honestly, that's the only way to put it, because obviously 390 terabytes is an absolutely massive amount of data to actually be able to bring down. We're getting basically almost halfway to a petabyte worth of data, and we're just talking about numbers that 99 out of 100 people never see as far as actual storage on their PC is concerned, because again, I am a filmmaker for a living, and I'm just above 50 terabytes all in. But there is more than just actually downloading this stuff. They're building backups that way that there's going to be different ways to actually access the information. And additionally, it's not just downloading it, it's keeping it all curated, all of the folders and subfolders intact. That way when you're searching for it or if files are nested, you're going to be able to find things into the future. And you're also going to have to deal with verifying and hashing all of the files to make sure they've downloaded correctly. And if you're not familiar, a checksum or a hash is just basically a code that a file will generate as far as all of the data is concerned. So if you have a copy of that and you check the checksum or the hash, those two numbers, if they match, you know you have a perfect one-to-one copy. And that really is important, especially for a lot of the redump stuff, including the 3DO M2 disks that I have done redumps for in the past. These things are one-to-one data accurate with every bit of metadata of the disk actually within that dump. So if people are downloading them, they have to check the hashes to make sure that they've downloaded it one-to-one correctly, or else you would end up in a situation where you have a disk that yes will work, but is not a perfect data match to what was actually preserved in the first place. Because there's two different ways to actually preserve games, and just making sure you preserve them so they are playable, and then having that redump style one-to-one perfect match from the data on the source to what the actual file is created with. And you'll see here that is a lot of what the process is going on right now, where you basically have to hash things out. So there's definitely going to be a little bit of re-downloading of stuff to make sure it is correct, but again, some of this stuff does exist all the way across the internet. So if there's a copy of something like Little League World Series Baseball on the PlayStation 3, there probably is another place to get that, because redump stuff can be hosted in more than one spot. But again, this is still a massive project, but it is definitely one that is 100% getting finished up. Especially on the overall downloadable side of things like the DLC and stores. That is stuff that you want to be able to actually have into the future, and some of the files are massive, some are large, and before you ask, is there still something that you can do? Use that clip specifically just for this. At this point in time, there really isn't. Because if you're over on the Minerva Archive Discord, and I will leave a link in the description below, you will see here that they're asking people to stop using the download tool until further notice, because it seems like in the back end the team's just going to be able to get all the rest of the data they need without any sort of community participation. And then from there it'll go through all of the different hashing processes to make sure that every single bit of data is going to be a 100% match. But again, this in and of itself is an absolute milestone, because 90% of 390 terabytes is a metric shit ton of data. But when the community heard that Myrient was shutting down, it was absolutely a sense of loss, because this is just something that is so important to so many people, myself included. We want Myrient to exist for all time, and if the original owner and host of this can't justify the overall expense of keeping it around any longer, that's when the community steps in and makes sure that it is saved. So I know I was getting a lot of questions as far as whether or not this thing could actually get done before the end of March, and I told everyone don't worry, I would update that I had some information that wasn't available on the website, and a couple people working on this had sent me messages or DMs on Discord. Myrient's files are going to be 100% preserved for all time. Now, how they actually end up being accessible in the future, that is the project goal, but it'll have to be a different video, because basically it seems like nothing has been decided on whatsoever. But I'm 100% confident that the entirety of Myrient is going to be saved, because it's already 90% of the way there. And if you do the basic math, getting that last 10%, which is still a decent chunk of files as far as the data size is concerned, in the next 3 weeks should not be an issue whatsoever. So what ended up being an absolute bummer, Myrient going away, and it will still be sad not to be able to go to the website, is turned into a win for the retro gaming community, and this is why retro gaming is making a comeback. The community gets bigger, everyone wants to save stuff, and everyone is excited to be able to make sure that we keep the legacy of what retro and modern gaming is alive for a very long time in the future. And if you know me and you know that channel preservation and sharing is definitely something I care about. So as of the recording of this audio, one more time, 90% of the Myrient Archive has been backed up, 10% to go, and it's definitely going to reach it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.